We're going toe to toe every day, man.
Can you do me a favor and tag me or share this to my page?
Yeah.
God bless you.
Oh hell! I already clicked live. Here, I
Not
can
to
do it.
worry.
I can do it on here. Hang on.
You'll get, when you've practiced this a few times, you'll get better
I
at it.
know, man. I don't know what's going on. I'm losing my touch here. Let's see.
They used to say that about me, that I was a slow learner.
I am a slow learner, but when I get it, I get it. Oh,
Yeah,
why,
same
why
here,
isn't that
same here.
coming up? Son of Joseph, right?
That
Huh.
says, let me have
Here
a
it is.
look, and then
Hang on. Oh, I got it. Here it is.
good man,
I got it. Boom. It's now
or never.
officially tagged. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we got a few people in the house already. 33. Oh, let me turn that music off. It's freaking me out. Okay. Happy solstice. Today's solstice?
It is indeed.
Ah, no
It is.
wonder. No wonder. No,
That's the long and the short of it.
that's why I should come on this day. Because I knew we would need some humor on this day. Hey, it's been a hell of a ride this year.
Well,
Dr. Hot Delaney, they said.
well, they must be. They must
Shakti
need help. They
Satir.
need psychiatric help. This hasn't gone live on my page yet. Is that some?
Refresh it. Or you
Okay.
might have a permission where you've got to approve it, but it should
Oh
pop
yeah.
up. Todd
Okay.
Medina tagged you,
Things
or
don't pop up so quickly these days for me.
Hung the Gwen is in the house. We're in
Oh
trouble.
no! Oh no! Oh no!
Wouldn't that be a show having Hung on here with you?
It would. It would.
That would be
I love
something,
her. I think she's brilliant.
isn't
My
she?
kind. Yeah, my kind of
Yeah,
girl.
she's something else. A padded room with a mirror at your back.
I'm trying. I'm still trying to find this. Bear with me, and
Hang
I'll
on, let
get.
me see. Here, I can just share it then. I just tagged you on it.
Yeah, I normally just have to.
Let me see here. Dr. Joe Delaney. Dr. Joe Delaney.
Todd Medina is live. No, tag.
Excuse
God
me.
bless you. God
Uh,
bless you.
let's see. No, you're not on there. I don't know
Yeah,
why it's
I've
not.
got it now. Just bear with me. I just need to add to profile,
Oh,
and then,
you had to approve it. Okay. Ah.
yeah.
So
So, how are you?
I'm good. I'm pretty good. I'm just yeah. These last couple of days have been you know a little bit invigorating, but those previous few days was kind of weird. It wasn't bad. It was just kind of weird. Like everything was blah.
I found the last 6 weeks interesting, to be honest. Well, actually, the
Well,
last
you
7 weeks, because the last time we spoke was basically a couple of months ago, and
hmm?
that was after I'd had my first heart attack. You know that one, when
Yeah,
I was
that's right.
explaining. Yeah, I explained to you that I was running, and I saw this sort of portal open up before me,
Yeah,
and all these sort of things were coming at me with different colors, multi different colors, and I thought, must be time for me to die, you know. And I've had chance to reflect on it. Just bear with me 1 second while I just check something here, if you don't
yeah.
mind. Thanks very much.
It's still there, probably. You can
I'll
probably
bear.
see it now that you've lost a little bit of your gut.
Well, steady on, because you know what sensitive chaps we are. I really don't care what you
No,
you
you,
couldn't say. You
you
couldn't say anything to upset me, Todd.
I don't know. I just had that said to me quite a few times, so I thought it
Oh,
was a pretty
yeah,
pretty good comeback. Yeah, you look like you lost some weight. How much have you
yeah.
lost? Like 10 pounds?
A bit more than that. I think about 16 pounds. I think so far. I've got
Wow.
another 16 pounds to go. To be honest with you, but all I've done basically is I've cut down on eating. And I'm eating. We've always sort of ate organic food and clean food and stuff like that, but I've just overeat. That's my
Yeah.
comfort seeking thing, because there's actually a neuroscientific evidence for stuffing yourself with food, because it automatically brings in the rest and digest response. So most people who are stressed, they don't overeat because they're greedy people. They overeat because it's actually a sort of balancing out thing, and it brings the relaxation response into them, you see. Not a lot of people know that, Todd, you see. So if you're an overeater, it's more likely to be stress rather than gluttony. So you can stop having a go at yourself, right, and start talking more kindly to yourself and start understanding yourself better. I can't help it, mate. This is who I am. This is what I do for a living. But to go back to the portal opening, I did say at the time, just to refresh people's memories, I did say, I do not want to go yet. Thank you. Now,
Yeah.
I honestly don't know whether or not the soul has a choice in this 3D world. I don't know. I don't know whether the soul's choice is, it's fixed, it's permanent. Was it my ego saying I don't want to? Todd, I don't understand how all that works. And, I'm not really too bothered about it. But I obviously didn't go. But a week later, Todd, action replay, exactly the same thing happened. I'm running again. I get the pain in my chest. I carried on till the end because I'm going for my 100th run, you see. And with the 100th run, you get a T-shirt. So I
Better,
thought
at
I
least,
was grip. I was
at least if
hang-
you just, at least if you decide to go, you'll have a new shirt to wear in your
well, exactly.
at
But
your
so
going
I'm
away
I'm
party.
I'm grabbing my chest like this, thinking I've got to carry on. Anyway, I carried on, and then I persevered throughout the day. And it felt like indigestion as well. And then that evening, we were sitting down, and Catherine said to me, "Are you all right?" And the sweat was coming off me. I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." But so I went to bed. Anyway, 4 o'clock in the morning, voof, it really gripped me throat, gripped me chest, and everything, and the sweat was just pouring off me. She rang up the emergency ambulance. They said it's going to be at least 2 hours before we can get to you. So she basically threw me in the car and drove like a maniac, thank God. And she brought me to the emergency department. Todd, they said they couldn't handle it. I had to go to a special hospital, and they said they would call the ambulance immediately. It took another 3 hours, Todd, to get me to that other hospital. And I was on my last legs. So now I don't take medications because, I've been clean and sober and everything for 30 years now. And so I'm very, very, very particular about what I ingest, what gets injected into me, what I eat, what I drink. I'm very, very particular about all those things. But the pain was so bad. They said to me, "Do you want pain relief?" I said, "Yes, please." So they filled me with as much morphine as they could and all sorts of other pain medications, and it never touched the pain at all. And I was in sort of two worlds. I was going through this. This is really terrible, this, and I can't stand the pain. I was looking at my wife's face, and she was terrified. The doctor who was treating me was terrified because they were wondering how long it was going to take for this ambulance to come, right? But I'm in pain, but there's another part of me watching it as all it was sort of part of some sort of entertainment program. It was really, really weird. And so, to cut a long story short, they cut all the roads off and they sent me through to this broad green hospital. And as I got in there, it was like going into a great big warehouse. It was almost like a spaceship. And whether or not that brought memories back of being abducted, I don't know, Todd. I don't know. But anyway, when I got in there, there was a load of physicians and everything and health people waiting. They slapped me onto the bed. They put a thing in my arm up into my heart. And then the doctor said to me, he said, "Just if you can, look up there." He said, "I'm going to count to three and then your pain will go away." And it showed me the heart. It showed a kink in my main coronary artery, which they call the widow maker. They call this coronary artery the widow maker. And he said, "One, two, three." And then I saw all the blood perfusing back into my heart. And then it started to beat properly again and the pain went away. But I've lost 50% of my heart muscle capacity at the moment. But it's been 6 weeks now, and I went for something called an exercise treadmill test in the week, where they basically got me to walk as briskly as possible up a 10% incline, and they're basically quite happy with the progress that I'm making so far. So that's the physical side. Todd, I nearly lost my life, but I was in that place again where and I've had a few. I think I've had more near-death experiences than most. Seriously, you know. And I don't know whether I had a choice again, because I was almost saying, if you're playing this game again, I've already told you I don't want to go yet. Thanks. Right. So, from a physical point of view, I've had a stent put in, but I get a sense of that there was a deeper meaning to me going through this, and it's almost as if this is what I feel, and this is what comes to me from my intuition, that it's almost like I'm going through a renovation, rejuvenation process, Todd. You know, and I'm almost going to be used once again. Here we go. As a model of good practice to see if I can allow the light to come through, regenerate what was not working properly, and go forward with some hope. I don't know what you feel about that. What do you feel? Do you think that
I'm
that's
just,
feasible?
uh, yeah, I'm just wondering if they can use it on any part of your body, you know?
Well, I've tried that, Todd. I've tried to direct it, like in Taoism, the cultivating an inner smile. Well, you can send energy to
Yeah.
different cells in your body,
Yeah.
and you can get them to either grow bigger or go smaller. Well, I've tried that, and some parts of the body it doesn't work.
No,
I've been trying that for 29 years, and nothing's happened so far. In fact, it's going retrogressively. It's going the wrong way around. Todd, why do we always get onto this subject?
well, I think it's because we got to laugh about it, But I mean, this is serious what you're talking about. This is very serious because so when he said, "Look up there, the pain's going to go away," is that when they stuck the stent in?
Yeah, that's when they inflate. They inflate
Okay, yeah.
the catheter,
And
and then
so
yeah.
no, oh, so and so what was the deal? You're in Liverpool, right? So I mean, what was the deal getting 2 hours to your house to get an ambulance and 3 hours or whatever it was to go from the hospital to the specialist? What was that all about? Is that something that's common?
No, it's because the National Health Service is overloaded. It's overloaded. They've got many, many staff off ill. They've got people off ill with these respiratory infections and stuff like that. They've got them off ill with stress. There's people in droves leaving the National Health Service. The ambulance crews can't deposit patients into the emergency department until some bed spaces are available. So they've actually got people in the corridors, Todd, and they've got a nurse or two nurses going up with a clipboard. They're like corridor triage nurses now, walking up and down with people on corridors on stretchers, right? And
Yeah, like you see in the movies when they have like a catastrophe and everybody fills up the hospital and they just like the MASH, the old movie MASH show.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what's happening over here in the UK at the moment. And we've got ambulances waiting at the hospital. So they can't take their patients off and deposit them in the hospital. So the paramedics have to stay with these individuals in the ambulances. And therefore, there's not enough ambulances to go
So
round
I
to pick
mean,
anybody else up.
so let me get this straight, because I definitely want to go back to what you started with. I'm just curious because there's so much information and misinformation out there. But do you know, or what do you know? I mean, why are there no beds? Okay, so you're saying it's a combination of people actually being ill with a respiratory affliction, which is maybe or maybe not attributed to COVID. Uh, is that part of it? And then and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
and then you have
Todd,
people leaving for I'm assuming because they didn't get jabbed or they're just tired of it or they're sick. That is that it?
it's very confusing, Todd, over at the moment. And all I can do is share my own experience and what I went through. And I know that there were people standing up, right, waiting to be seen. And apparently they were waiting 7 to 9 hours before their first appointment with a health person. So where I was, Todd, it was overflowing with people, and there was just now what actually happened on the wards and stuff. I don't know. Um, but where I was on the wards, they were busy. They were just busy,
That's
and there was
crazy.
hardly any room.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I
And you'll
wonder.
hear some, sorry, mate, you'll hear some reports to say the hospitals aren't busy and the staff are just sitting around smoking and having a cup of coffee and laughing. That wasn't my experience, Todd. My experience was they were overloaded, running around, trying their best. The staff were fantastic, absolutely fantastic. But it's obviously that they were stressed to the gills and they were tired, you know. But they were so polite and so professional. I think that, I've worked in the National Health Service for nearly 40 years, and they are going through hell at the moment for all sorts of different reasons. And I don't get into the debate about, all I'm concerned about is this general thing that's going on in the world. There's a spiritual reason why this is happening at the moment. That's why I
Yes.
see it. And the
Yeah.
spiritual reason is one thing and one thing alone is, as we've shared many, many times, is to thine own self be true.
Yeah.
Be
Yeah.
guided by your own intuition from one breath to the next, and then make a decision. Now, in that regard, Todd, people will say to me, well, if this happens in the future, what will you do? And my answer is, I don't know, because I make my decisions based from one moment to the next. And I
Yeah.
just assume that my higher power, or the thing that looks after me, that I've handed my will and my life over to, that they can see the bigger picture and it can guide me from one breath to the next. And that's how I make my decisions these days. People say to me, well, just put yourself in my position. I say, well, first of all, I'm not you, so I can't do that. Well, what would you do in this situation? I'll say, let me just explain this again, right? I don't know until I get there. And I don't think anybody knows, Todd. I think the way the world is, it's changing so rapidly that I don't even think that the higher power knows what's going on next, because there's no predictability, there's
Yeah.
no determinism, right? When you work in a quantum reality, as you know, because you make the decision based upon your intuition from one breath to the next.
Uh, Here's a comment from Tricia Shanigan. She's been battling, I believe, cancer for quite some time. She was on. I want to get her on again. She's just came out. I noticed 3 or 4 weeks ago, and she's still smiling. But she said it's a time for interdimensional healing, and they are there. She's talking about the hospitals. I have experienced hospitals are a dense paradigm, but currently necessary. Yeah, it's really weird because like your experience, and then I saw two comments. One was an RN. She was in the U.S., and I'm not sure where that other one was from, talking about that they've seen the same thing since COVID came. I'd almost like to do a show just to throw it out there of what people know and what's really going on, because I have seen nurses from around the world talking about, everything from uh, way back, we were full, to there's nobody here, to everyone that's coming is all have all been vaccinated. Um, and of course the people leaving, and there's just so much. I'd love to maybe do a show and see what people actually know, because there's already been about 4 comments here. But yeah, what you're saying is true. And then your situation is almost like a microcosm, a perfect microcosm of the collective thing. So you get put in this situation, and then you start to have to answer questions that you haven't asked yourself, almost, really. Like, do I want to go?
Yeah.
And then it happens again, which I find absolutely almost unbelievable, that you call and it's going to be 2 hours, and then you're at the doctors or at the hospital, and you're going to go to the specialist, which is basically going to essentially save your life, from the way it sounded, from what the doctors were saying. And it's another 2 3 hours. I mean, what the hell's going on here? Now, let's not talk about this, but is this orchestrated, or is it actually happening? It just doesn't make any sense. But in your case, you go through round two. I mean, that must have been like literally, like you were talking about, and some people have been talking about this, walking in two worlds. Like that, it sounds very surreal, number one. And I'm talking about specifically, well, really the whole thing, but specifically being at a hospital, being told they can't help you, being in this environment where you got this triage uh, process in the hallways, and then actually going to this other facility, the warehouse. Uh, that just sounds like something out of a sci-fi flick, really.
Well, Todd, I was not afraid in any way, shape, or form. I had no fear whatsoever, none whatsoever. This observing me, right, was watching the Joe, the physical Joe going through it. And I was flipping from being in pain to being an observer, being in play. Now, I've had near death experiences before where I've been completely out of my body, and I've been going down the tunnel and seeing the light, and I've done all that. And during this process, I was thinking, maybe this is just another sort of form of it, really. You see, because I'm always sort of hanging on, one foot in material and one foot in the spiritual, trying to get some handle on what the hell's going on here. And also, Todd, it's an irony because my doctorate is actually in what I was going through, so it's helped me, because my whole PhD was based upon how the heart works and how the feminine and masculine components of the heart, how they balance one another and stuff like that. So during this process, I'm sort of saying to myself, what is it that you're trying to show me here? you know while I was sort of nearly dying, I was also trying to learn at the same time. And the other thing about it, Todd, is I'm a sort of a long-standing Reiki master as well. So so I'm trying to send myself Reiki, right, at the same time. It's just bizarre, mate. Honestly, I can't really explain it. But looking back, I was more concerned about my wife because she was terrified and she just didn't know what was going on. And I was more concerned about her than I was myself, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah. To me, it sounds like that you experienced in the present moment what we're experiencing collectively. So you're walking in two worlds. You're basically at a level of, uh, you know, your mortality, which applies to this realm and applies to you in some way. You're walking two worlds at the same time. You're outside of that, and it's almost like, okay, so I look at like your experience, like, okay, if that's the world, so the world is needs alignment, it needs healing, we seek that, you know, and in this whole journey we're seeking that, whatever that is. And you're walking down this corridor and all those things are happening, and that's like, is that real? Right? Like, is that, what is that? Is that something that's basically implanting itself in my consciousness, or, or not? Is it relevant or not? And then you go into the situation where you get the stent put in, and here's your mortality again. I don't know. It's just, I had no idea that your experience, which was enough within itself, included also this, this almost too fantastic of a scenario. That's a pretty big. We're talking about a pretty big metropolis, aren't we? I mean, Liverpool's got to be what, 1 million people, maybe.
I don't know how many, but Merseyside, yeah, more than that maybe. But but the thing about it was, I'm still trying to figure it out, really. I mean, I don't know yet, and I've been putting a thing up: is freedom is the ability to let go of the need to know. Because
Yeah.
before I'd be crucifying myself now trying to work it out. What have I done wrong? I mean, Todd, a couple of weeks before, I'd just completed my 17th marathon. You know what I mean? My fifth London marathon, my 17th marathon. I keep myself fit. I was running 20 to 30 miles a week, just jogging basically, just to keep myself fit. Um, as I mentioned, overeating was the problem, but we eat clean stuff, drink clean food, and all that sort of business. So on the surface, I was doing really what I was supposed to do to keep me heart going and all that. Now, some people ask me, have I had the vaccine? Because there's apparently heart problems going on now with the vaccine and all sorts of pericarditis and all this sort of stuff. I haven't had the vaccine, no. And for the reasons that I stated, I'll have to say to people that my job is I'm a senior research fellow in medicine. And my job is I teach people to critically analyze and evaluate medical research and medical papers. That's what I do for a living. And I've looked at thousands of papers to do with all this stuff. And I'm only talking about me now, because I think discernment is the key.
Mm.
And up to this point, and this is just me talking about where I am in my soul and in my heart, I don't think that there's sufficient evidence yet of a medium to long term nature on the safety and the efficacy of these things. So I'm sticking with my immune system and my trust in my higher power. And
Hmm.
that's how I'm getting through. And apart from having a couple of heart attacks, I'm sure that my immune system's in jolly good stead. And I actually feel marvelous. But I'm always trying to look at the spiritual lesson under this. And I was told, Joe, we've removed whoever we is. I've got no idea who we is, but it's a benevolent force.
Uh,
We've removed basically another plug that was obstructing you at a deeper level. How do you feel now? And I think, yeah, I feel de-obstructed.
yeah.
So I don't know, Todd. I'm like everybody else. I'm trying to piece it together, not knowing what's really going on. But I know that in 6 months' time, looking back, God willing, right, I'll have a clearer idea of what this was all about.
Trisha put up another great comment here. Let's see. Healing is not one size fits all. It's what resonates to the individual, and yes, to the discernment. Can't even talk. Uh, Again, this is really interesting. I mean, I didn't know that that's what your education was, you know, based on, or the one of the themes of it. Obviously, this is interesting to me because you're practicing what you preach for yourself,
Yeah, yeah,
and uh, so you're what you're saying is that you have actually participated in both. So you've gone to a physical doctor and there's been a unclogging, but at the same time, your understanding from from infinite intelligence or whatever is that there's been another procedure performed, which is interesting too, because as things happen in the energetic, sometimes we see them in the physical manifestation. I mean, there's just so much to this. Um, and I mean, I'm still trying to get over because you almost had like a double trauma here. Really,
yeah.
you did have a double trauma. Now, I'm not talking about the two episodes, but having the second episode and then having to deal with the trauma or reality or whatever that was of the situation with the medical industry there in Liverpool. So I don't know. How do you? I
Yeah.
mean, what's your approach now? I mean, do you think about it? I know you're still. I saw you on a couple of videos, so you're still walking or running. Um, I mean, obviously you've done something with your diet because you actually. I could see it immediately. You'd lost weight. Not to mention your color looks really good, which not that it didn't before, but you needed all the help you could get, and so I'm happy for you.
No, well, I know that, Todd. Yeah, and that's why when I come on this show, I always feel hopeful. When I compare myself to you. Anyway, listen, don't be at it, because we take the piss a lot because that's our fun. It's not meant to be harmful to anybody. It's lightheartedness is definitely the key. And I've been able to maintain a lightheartedness through this only because I've got no bleeding idea what's going on whatsoever, but I'm not dead yet. So there must be a purpose for it. And I honestly, going through all the other stuff that I went through, the drinking and the suicidal attempts and all that sort of business, I spent so many years being absolutely unhappy and depressed that I do feel that my simple philosophy these days is I allow the day to manifest. So I take what the day offers and I try to make the best of it. And
Yeah.
that's my philosophy now. Without overthinking or over egging everything, I try and open my heart up and
Right.
allow that thing that's within me, deep within me, to come out and try to express itself. I mean, I can put all sorts of words on that to say that
No, I
that's the
get you.
soul. That's the soul embodying me and expressing itself through me and using me as a human vehicle. Blah blah blah. I know all that. What I'm saying is, I don't get into all that now.
No, I
Whether
know.
it's called a Merkaba, a Merkava, or something else means nothing to me. You know, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's just
No,
that,
no, no. I get what you're saying. I
yeah,
get you. I totally get what you're saying with the overcomplication from our finite minds, and the beautiful simplicity of our infinite minds. It's like I just picture you like walking down a sidewalk, and the metaphor of actually taking in everything that's in front of you as it comes in front of you, like stop and smell the roses type of thing, right? Hung's got a question. She said, Dr. Joe, have you changed your perception at all with this experience? That's a good question.
I don't think I've changed it. I think that my perception has been changed through the experience. I think that's the way it works. It's opened my mind up even more, and the sort of feeling that I got, Hung, was and was walking down a corridor, and some of the doors were still closed, and I just needed to open the door, let the smell out, go in, clean these rooms up, which represent spheres of my consciousness, clean it up, redecorate the room, find out what the gift is in there, and then move further along the corridor. That's the vision I got, really. It was almost like the Vesica Pisces formed, right? And I was walking up like corridors, and on either side there were different rooms. Most of them were open, but there were still some rooms that needed to be open and aired out. I'm just
Mm.
speaking as it's coming out here. So,
Yeah.
so obviously, I think more things have come online with regard to abilities. I think I've become much more tuned in now, almost like telepathic in most circumstances. So the answer to your question is yes, my perception's changed, but I think the experience at a deeper level has changed that for me without any sort of conscious intervention on my part.
Yeah.
I feel great. I can't explain, but I feel absolutely fantastic. I really do.
Wow. And just a quick shout out to Gilda Stern. So her husband transitioned on October 15th. Um, so condolences to you. And I think Franco was the 20th. Um, and just on that note, whatever the perspective is and experience is in regard to uh, what's been presented over the last 2 years, there are people transitioning, and some of this really had been, predicted or forecast for years. That at some point there would be, uh, a substantial exodus from a soul level or whatever, however that works, and the rest would be left to continue on walking the two roads. I guess I don't know. Um, it, Hung says that your energy feels like you have shifted to a place of more peace. I notice, obviously doing the work I do, I get to see people, especially you. I get to see you for the last couple of years. You and Franco probably more as much as anybody. And I know people could probably see that in myself because it's not difficult when you make this many videos, the change that we've all been going through. But some of the changes, a lot of these dark nights of the soul, if we go way back to many of our awakenings or reawakenings, were precipitated by like a sudden faith quake, a sudden come to Jesus meeting. And so it kind of carries an energy like that. But as we've gone through this transition, it's almost like we go on this type of ride through cycles like that on a smaller level, day after day after day. But in your situation, this was I'm trying to like step in your shoes. And that's a pretty big, because you're what, 5 years older than me, 4 years older than me? I mean,
Uh, I'm coming up to 67 now.
oh, you're 7 years older than me. Okay, so but still, that's not, you know what I mean? I mean, you're making me think about it, right? Mortality.
You look
But
a
I
lot
mean,
older than me.
I know. But especially lately. So But in terms of like your outlook now, I mean, I think you may have already said this. It's really brought you to a present state of mind, like you literally moment by moment, and your disposition, your demeanor seems to be like she said. You know, your energy feels like it shifted to a place of more peace. Is that that's? Is there anything you can add to that? I mean, is there anything that we're missing?
I feel much stronger. I realize how important time and energy are.
Yeah,
And really, it's all become about time and energy management to me. And I don't want to waste my time on things that are important, because I think that I'll talk about me. I've been brought up to be over polite, and
right.
I would listen to people who were boring, basically boring the arse off me, but I'd be polite there, listening to them for half an hour, when I could have said within 10 seconds, it's lovely to see you, I must go now, I've got a life to have. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to be horrible here, but I think that I used to be a sort of existentialist, progressivist type of person, and I've become very essentialist now. And let me just explain what that means. It means, right, I've become very zen, you know,
Yeah,
and words, too many words now, are a waste of breath. This is where I'm up to now. I've
yeah,
become very, very much more direct now, much more cut through. It's never meant to be rude, but in an over polite society, it's seen as being rude. And Todd, I've got no time now. I want to try and have as much life as possible. And I want my soul to express itself as fully as possible in whatever way it's going to sort of manifest, because I've got my ego's got no idea what's coming up, and that's partly exciting and partly bloody frightening at the same time. But I think that I've surrendered now completely to my soul, to my soul's purpose, to my soul's direction, and I've basically said, go on, big boy, have your way with me fully now, but please make it good, make it fun, make it worthwhile, make it joyful. That's where I'm up to, you know. I,
that's that's powerful. That's a powerful
honestly,
thing.
I can't explain. It's just powering out of me, and I feel like I've got some sort of a purpose, but I don't know what that purpose is. I've got no specific mission, because I think that mission thing in my mind is like another sort of aspect of egomania.
Yeah,
This is my job, this is my
yeah,
function, and this is what I'm going to do. Get out of my way, I'm coming through. I
yeah,
used to be like that, Todd, like an
yeah.
ambulance chaser. And I see that for me now, I'm only ever talking about me. For thee now, that seems like back to front and upside down.
Yeah. Well, it's like, that's a really good point. And I want to go back to time and energy because I think that's another good point. I think I'm a pretty good moderator, but you've got like 16 questions in my head right now just from what you've said so far. But um God, I forgot what I was going to talk about first. Well, anyway, the second thing, time and energy. Like I can't even begin to compare my life experience of the last few weeks to yours, especially after listening to you the first part of this show. But energetically, the patterns of liberation that leads to being direct and valuing your time. I saw a meme a couple of weeks ago. It said, I am sensitive to other people's feelings, but I am sensitive and I will honor my own. In other words, it's what you were saying basically. But the time thing, I think we've all had pressures of uh, that have played that are confronting this over politeness, this over giving that pretty much everybody here's had. If you're an empath, you've had it. That we've been contending with and transforming. So we've all had that, and I had a couple of situations in the last few days where a couple of people were asking me to do something that was time consuming. There was also an energy about it that wasn't in alignment with me, the new me, right? Like the part of me that's valuing this energy, and part of energy is time, at least in the way that we're the stage that we're at still. It's still a consideration. And so I went ahead and did the functions that I was asked to do. Uh, and I had to really prepare myself before I did them. And I know it sounds like menial bullshit, but I didn't want to leave with a charge. So now as I'm listening to you, that's kind of what I'm getting to. It's like you're having this conversation with the big Joe and the little Joe, and the little Joe's going, okay, what the fuck? Okay, look, I don't know anything. I admit it, Uncle tapped me out, and but I'm here for the ride, and I want to be as you know cognizant of everything that is around me and being presented to me, because there's obviously that's the whole point. That's the point. There must be something there every day, every moment that can help me to expand. And then, of course, that Zen humility type of frequency, or I should say, the Zen frequency that comes from a level of humility, which comes from getting your ass handed to you on a platter, which is from nobody but the external, but the universal. So I can feel into that a little bit. And this, I think, one of the misconceptions we've had about ascension as a whole, and the let's just say the extensions of that, all the different aspects of our experience that are rooted in ascension, rooted in a belief of the expansion of the soul. uh I just feel like that we've we've been brought up in a society or a world or whatever you want to call it, especially now, the last 100 years, where you flip a switch and it's done. Oh, I'm changed. Oh, I'm ascended. Or I'm smart, or whatever the case is. And I don't think it works that way. I think it's a little step, and obviously you have experiences like you've just had, and not only is that you, but it's your wife, and I'm sure one or two others that are close to you that have actually had to confront, because I'm sure that she must have had to confront not only your mortality but hers, and
Yeah.
not only your questions of existence, but also her own. So I mean, this is a to me like it's a small drop in the ocean, but the ocean's going through it too. And even like what you described with the medical facilities and the medical apparatus that you dealt with on a personal level, it's the same type. It looks like the same type of thing to me. It's like, even listening to you talk about what you're diagnosed with, how you were treated, and at the root of it, you're really commanding that treatment through your own relationship with your body. So this is all, to me, like very fresh intel from boots on the ground, and there's a lot in what you're saying, energetically speaking, that I think is coming through, because I think that's another thing. We're hearing things, seeing things, sensing things, and picking up things, or you might say code, through these personal experiences that people share.
What I've realized is how important the physical vessel is, and how little we know about looking after it properly right from an early age.
Hmm.
Because what I've realized as well is, and I've worked in this field for a long time, is that there's a point here in the left chest, here in the left pectoral muscle. It's called the cardiac trigger point. And I've published papers on this, Todd, and not paid attention to what I've written basically. But what happens is how your visceral organs, including your heart, are intricately and intimately connected to your musculoskeletal system. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm going to say some posh words. Your somatic system, that's your outside muscles, that's the moving bits, okay? And your organs are obviously connected. Now, if you press on this certain trigger point in your left pectoral muscle, you can actually cause your EKG or your ECG to change. That's how connected they are. And if the heart is diseased, it can send pains into your chest muscle and down your arm. That's quite a commonly known thing. What I've realized, Todd, is that unconsciously over the years I've tensed my left pectoral muscle, I've pulled my shoulder around, and I've tilted my head, all in a protective, defensive thing that's gone on unconsciously. Sorry if I'm going on, but people might understand this. What I've realized is the importance of things like stretching and yoga and massage and all these things, not just exercise, but also stretching as well, and Tai Chi. Sifu Boggy will tell you about this. And what I've come to understand, Todd, is that I was almost compressed in a defensive way. And that was sort of structurally not allowing my heart to express itself, or if you like, not allowing my soul to express itself through an open and flowing heart, because I was physically contracted as well. I'm just going with this as it's coming out. So, what I've also learned is I'm also doing some gentle stretching exercises now with poles and ropes and things to try and realign my musculature with my nervous system, with everything else. Because obviously, if there's a kink in a muscle, then the flow of vital energy must be obstructed in some way. It will cause pain and we won't get the full benefit of the flow. There we are, mate. Over to you.
No, that's good stuff. I've had the feeling, and again, it's just my own feeling within my own experience. Uh, as you start to put the pieces together. At least I'm just speaking for my own, only for myself, just like you're talking about for yourself. Like I don't know, it goes something like this. I mean, there's there's um, a possibility. There's something there that tells me that I'm in a vessel now that I can actually regenerate. Um, I can I'm communicating with at a level I never have. Um, it's there's a natural progression to it. Like a lot of people have been talking about eating. I just can't eat anymore. I can't eat this anymore. And you can give all kinds of examples. I mean, giving up, let's say, bad habits. I can identify with that. Say bad habits, but I mean things that are. I mean, it's like the like you said, the body is talking really loud, and it's becoming obvious. I mean, I said for years when I came out of the gates 10 years ago, because that's what I understood. You cannot divorce yourself from any aspect of the universe. And of course, I'm talking about the prejudices and the biases and so on and so on, good and evil and all that. But what's the closest thing to us that we've given the least recognition to from that place? And I'm not talking about the ego of let me make myself look pretty, let me do my hair, let me dress this way. I'm talking about because really, if you think about it, why we look at anything outside of ourselves, whether it's something that's quote unquote AI or it's a tree or whatever. The God particle, the goddess particle is making that up, just like it makes me up. Well, why would my body be limited? I mean, we're talking about a liberation that goes beyond our dreams. It goes beyond the our perspective of what was attainable or not attainable prior to all this wake up experience. We actually have this potential within our body itself, and I don't know. You mentioned, and I was going to actually ask you about this, and then you mentioned something about it, but you mentioned that in this throughout these past few weeks, one of the things that's come to the surface is an expansion of maybe skills, abilities, and higher sensitivities. I mean, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. It's what's actually happened. I mean, I had this anyway, but it's expanded and it's more refined now. But I think from a quantum point of view, it's about refinement and tuning into higher frequencies. And with that comes higher and different feelings. And I've been having these sort of feelings coming in that I've had before, right, as a child, almost like free feelings. And I've had those sort of coming in, So my feeling body, or my awareness of the feelings and the vibrations has changed, so that's picked up as well. Like my antenna has improved, but also virtually saying words that people are going to say before they've said them, that's coming in a lot now. And just getting a sense of people's energies, just clocking my eyes on them, feeling the whole energy, and then decided based upon energy, not on personal likes or dislikes, just
Right.
deciding on energy whether to stay will be fruitful or fruitless, and then deciding on just my feelings of energy. So I'm being really, really honest about the way that I feel now, and I'm becoming more sensitive about it. And I've also noticed that when a new level of sensitivity comes in, it brings back all the paranoid feelings temporarily. Where you go in a crowd sometimes and you just can't handle it because there's all sorts of information coming at you. Well, I know that feeling now. I can breathe out there, settle down, and allow it to sort of plateau. And then for a while, then I've got these extra abilities until the next wave comes in. So there seems to be a stepping up in sensitivity, but also my mind seems to have expanded to be able to encompass more of what really this world is all about. Todd, more than anything else in me, I don't want to fool myself anymore. I don't want to fool anybody else, and I don't want to be fooled. I'm not bothered now about things that I might have hidden in my psyche from the past. I don't care anymore. All I want is that I'm completely and utterly free, right, to enjoy this 3D world that we live in. And
Yeah.
another thing as well is the beauty of nature. I remember when I was a kid, when I was a child, I was addicted to golf. Me and my brother used to play 3 rounds of golf a day, right? And he was more a professional, my brother, but I was more interested in being outdoors. And my most favorite time was when it was just slightly raining a bit. It seemed to bring all the colors up. The green was beautiful, the smell was beautiful, and stuff like that. I've always been into that, and that seems to be coming back to me, the realization of just how beautiful nature is you know and so I don't know whether I've sort of explained anything there, but I'm just
No, you
thinking
have.
more
Yeah.
sensitive, more refined, more open, more expanded. That's
Yeah.
how I feel.
No, part of what's coming through. Oh, let me just say this is interesting. First, what Hung said. She said you must have been Asian in your previous life and died of the pressure point at that pressure point in combat. If you ever need to disable another person, that's the part you're supposed to focus all your energy on to shut down the entire body. That's interesting. Um, yeah. What I was going to say is like part of what I'm picking up from what you're saying is, again, something that I've been experiencing, and I've seen it in others. And we talk about childlike wonder over the years, but I've noticed, and I told the story the other day. I went to this Mexican restaurant a few days ago, and Mexican food is a very elaborate menu, right? And because I grew up eating that food, I know what it is. But the most generic thing, you might say the most anglo-sized thing when it comes to Mexican food, is the crispy taco with some ground beef, lettuce, tomato, and shredded cheese. And if you're really, white or non-Mexican, you put no hot sauce on it, right? It's almost like something you give a kid. So I went to this Mexican restaurant, and I'm looking at this diverse menu, and I end up ordering just that, just these tacos with lettuce, tomato, and cheese. I know this sounds like it's unrelated, but it's not, because it was not me that ordered it.
Ah,
And I remember when the guy came, he said, "What would you like?" I said, "Combination number 10, which is the tacos with the rice and the beans, right?" And he brings it, and I'm eating it, and halfway through the first taco, I'm remembering, as a kid, this was my favorite dish. It was my favorite dish was just what I described. I haven't had it in 45, 50 years or whatever it is, right? And but it was this combination of almost like re-experiencing, realigning, and there was something sort of natural about it. There was I knew that in some way I'd been pushed into this experience, because I really didn't intend to even do that night. I was out looking for something, doing something else, and I thought, oh, I'll just stop and have a couple of a small bite. But yeah, there's something about what you're talking about, and I don't think it's unique to you or unique to this experience I had in the restaurant the other night. It's in the air, and if you look at kids, one of the things that's so beautiful about kids is they are direct. They're going to tell you like it is. And anyone that's had kids in their house also knows, I don't give a shit what you do, what you try to keep from them. They know what's going on. So their language, and therefore their experience, I should say, the way they navigate their experience through interaction with others or mirrors of themselves, involves this telepathy and intuition, and this, I'll use the word innocence, this I can only say childlike wonder. So it's not just how the world's navigated, but it's also, as a result of that, it's unencumbered, and it's how the individual experiences the world, and it's a totally different thing. I got to believe some of that's coming back.
Yeah.
You know, I got to believe it, because it feels like that.
See, I think Christian people have born again Christians,
Yeah.
and I almost feel like I've been born again. This was 30 years ago when it started to happen, but it's almost like the process has speeded up very quickly now. And it's almost as if, and this is sort of ancient Hebrew as well, that I've been sort of obstructed by, or in a shroud of, all my experiences that were basically not mine, not my experiences, but stuff that I was fed with. And it's almost like clamped me down. And what seems to be happening now is all these filters, call it epiphany, not epiphany, apocalyptic, they're dropping off now. And what was always there in a natural way, unconditioned way, is being returned to me, so that I can start a new life now based upon open hearted honesty, and not being fed information by anybody else. So that's where I feel now, that I'm being purged and cleansed and high pressured hosed of
Yeah.
all this stuff that's basically formed my life. I tell you something else that's been coming to me as well. Morphic resonance as well, and morphogenetic stuff as well. All that information on how sound, I call it inaudible sound and invisible light, how that human body is formed as a consequence of the interaction of those two things. And I'm thinking, steady on, I can't take this all on board, but I can see where Rupert Sheldrake's work on morphic resonance makes perfect sense now. It makes perfect sense. You know, it's Todd, it's fascinating. It's
Is that
like, go on, sorry.
is that no? Because recently something came into my field, and I think it's in regard to what you're talking about. And I can't even tell you. I know this didn't come from a video or anything I read, but it was these 12. I don't even want to call them rays, but I think that's be the closest word I could come up with, because there was 12, and I understood that they were the original, I guess you would say, like the original architects of the universe. Now these rays had color. They each had their own color. They each had their own sound. I'm not quite as, and again, this is my own experience. I'm just trying to weave something here. I think this is what you're talking about, but it was presented, and so they each had their own color, their own sound, their own wave pattern, their own geometry, I guess, and that I understood, for whatever reason, that this is the, like the 12 pillars of the architecture of the universal, or something like that. Now, at the same time, and I'm trying to figure out, is this where you're at, or is this what you're talking about? And you can just add to it or whatever, subtract. But at the same time, what's been coming in has been that information, and you know being able to tap into specific parts of the morphic field, or you might call it the Akashic. And at least for me personally, over the last few weeks, having a much higher ability or aptitude to be able to do that. I'm still not understanding everything I tap into, because sometimes I'll tap into something and it'll start, then something totally different comes in, or at least it seems like it is. But there seems to be more information, more code, more memories. And I've even noticed this on the collective recently, because all of a sudden, over the last month, there's been an incredible amount of information, at least from my perspective, about our prior, not talked about much, let's just say, history, specific to the time before the flood and specific to giants. Okay. And so I'm going, this is really weird. It's like more information is filling up the vessel. And I'm looking outside and, of course, seeing a mirror of that. And it's happening to everybody. Like there's almost like this unspoken thing that's been turned on quietly in the back of the room, that's coming up, that's like permeating our space, and it's light, it's love, it's code, it's memory, it's reality, or whatever you want to call it. But is that what you're talking about with this? What did you say? Morpho? What?
Yeah, morphic resonance, isn't it?
Morphic resonance. Yeah.
Morphogenetic. So I we're on the same wavelength, definitely, and I agree with what you say. And I think playing in the background is the truth. It's the truth of the history of mankind, because we've been duped, haven't we? The history books, as they're written, right, are completely and utterly false. So it's almost like those pages are being wiped away now. I mean, you mentioned giants as well. I mean, there's so much stuff coming about now on giants in the past and stuff like that. But the 12, we've talked about this before. I've had the vision for years that the heart and the deep heart, the heart of hearts, is the 13th sphere, if you like, the 13th. It's the master vibration, and it's connected to the 12 disciples, the 12 pillars, the 12 whatever. It's those that have been misaligned. It's like the disciples have been falling out with one another and not paying attention to the Christ. So it's almost like the Christ said, oh, listen, I've had enough of you lot now. Right, I'm going to take charge again. I gave you a few jobs to do and you've cocked it up. So I'm getting back in charge again. This is how it works. So from the heart center now, you can sense now, right, this sort of spherical, it's a bit like sonic geometry and light geometry at the same time, but you can almost send a vibration out to de-obstruct and realign the disciple that's not behaving himself, you know. But
Yeah,
here's another thing.
like a mutual. What's the word? But yeah, I get what you're saying. But it's a
So
mutual thing.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, I get that.
perfect balance. So the Christ center is right at the center, right, of this Merkaba, if you like. It's right in the middle, in perfect balance. So that would be the 0 point. So the
Yeah.
longer that you can stay in the 0 point, the more these disciples start to cooperate and harmonize with one another. And I think what happens is that's where the realignment takes place, by just sitting in the 0 point and
Yeah.
allowing it to happen. That's true mastership, isn't it? Because that's awareness. That's not really manipulation of sorts. It's almost like just sitting there and allowing all the scales to balance themselves. So, Todd, there's so much of this. And I think that what we're being asked to do is surrender to this rebalancing process and not try to interfere with it.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
it's either this, that, or the other, right? And I think that we need to sit in the other,
yeah.
right?
Love Peace on YouTube. She brought up a pretty good point here. Mateus De Stefano said we can't go in the fifth dimension if we don't really enjoy the third and the fourth. And of course, there's been a lot of, not that that's a cliche, because it's not, but because I totally dig the comment and I dig the dude. But you know, there's something about what you're talking about, and also what you're actually presenting with your energy, and what I'm seeing in other people, and maybe I'm experiencing it with Morgan and I and myself and so on. And that is, you know, my thought of, you really need to, you know, that comment prior to, let's just say maybe a couple of months ago, has been really, to step outside and really stop and smell the roses and really appreciate life itself. And I think I've always had a pretty good connection to that part of me. But um, I think it's not what I thought. I think it's more like what you're talking about. Like there's something powerful about an energy that could be conscious in this reality at this time, right? Uh, that if it's walking through life, so to speak, in that 0 point you're talking about, or sustaining itself in that space, there's some type of I almost want to say like indirect relationship, but indirect in the sense of how we think things uh, can work or how we can understand how they work because we can't. See, this is what I'm saying. Like the space that you're describing is an indescribable space, yet it's something we're familiar with because that's our natural state when we're stars humming, the 12 bars of creation. But to carry that here and to sustain it in a progression of evolution, it brings things. You talked about at the beginning of the show, one of the changes has been you're no longer out there doing this, doing that, getting this. Not that you're not doing anything, but it's more of a walk through life of what's coming to me. But you have something to do with what's coming to you. And what I'm trying to say, I think there's some type of link between sustaining or the periods of sustainment or the degrees of sustainment we have in the 0 point field while we're consciously walking, talking, breathing, and eating. There's something going on with that, which is making itself known. Uh, and again, these things that I'm fruitlessly trying to explain from my own experience, I could really make it a lot simpler and say it's unexplainable. But I know there's something in me that knows everybody's getting this in
Yeah.
some way or another. Everybody's getting this because, and I think maybe part of the reason that's happening, or maybe even the main reason that's happening, at least when you look at the external, would be again, you'd be able to see the energy of that in the microscopic um, experience that you had, representing a one of the whole, which was you're in this place, but in your body. Mass chaos or disruption or uncomfortableness or whatever you want to call it, or threat or whatever you want to call it. So you've already got that field discombobulated. Now you're going into this hospital system, and every part of it is you've got doctors that are doing a fantastic job with you, and then as you're walking to them, you're seeing all this stuff that doesn't make any sense. With what you don't have patients, or are there people in the rooms? Maybe they. So there's all this information, disinformation, which kind of leaves you at a place, or leaves the person at a place of going, all this is a bunch of BS. All it's doing is confusing me. And then in some type of nice nudge, as well as our own inclination at some point when we get fed up, we just go, I'm just going to stay here. And so again, it's right before our eyes. It's us. And because we think it's always got to be this massive channeling experience or download or some apparition is going to appear, uh, maybe it's not. Maybe it's the most human part of us that just says, I know it sounds corny, but like look in the mirror and say, you're not bad. Hey, I love it. It's cool. I'm good. Kind of thing. Just
It's almost as if it's just, well, this is the way that it is. Ah, well, there you go.
yeah,
End
it
of
is what
story.
it is what it is today.
It is what it is. So again, that 24 hours, I think I'll try and make the best of this. I wonder what's going to happen next.
Yeah,
We'll have to wait and see,
yeah,
because I honestly don't believe this thing works by attraction, not promotion. And I
yeah.
think the ego wants to promote because it's got ideas, you see. And I think that's the difference between imagination. I think imagination comes from two places. Right, one's a vision really that comes from the soul, so it almost like emerges up into your mind, and you see a vision. I'm talking about me now. I
I
see a
got you.
vision, I didn't make that up through my thinking. That came of its own accord. That's different. Imagination is almost taking a seed thought and building on it. I think that that's a danger. Well, there is for me, because it assumes what I know, what I want, I know what I need, and I know how to get it. And generally speaking, that's when I'm trying to manipulate other people and plan my own life out, and it never works anymore, Todd. So the words I use most often during the day are, thy will, not mine, be done. But give us a clue if you can. And that's all I'm saying all the time. When things don't work out as I expect them to, I have to say, thy will, not mine, be done. And that almost like brushes aside all those thoughts, and it leaves another clear space so I can go forward.
What was
So,
that? What was that
sorry,
you
mate.
said a minute ago? You said such and such doesn't
It
it's
works
an
by
attract
attraction,
it's
not
an attract
promotion.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah, that energy, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, they
Like I
call it
said
a
this for
strange
years.
attractor, don't they? So,
Yeah,
so the way I see it is, if I open my heart up, the soul comes out, and
yeah,
it sort of magnetizes and attracts to it what it needs next in order
yeah,
for it to progress.
yeah.
Because this is not the ego's game. Because
No,
ego to me means edging
no,
God out. You know.
yeah.
So the thing about it is to put the ego aside if possible, open the heart up, let the soul come out. It will attract to it the people, the places, the furniture, and
Yeah,
everything else in order for it to experience its next level of progress. And
yeah.
I think that's basically the ego just needs to sit in the background and see what the soul's up to, you know.
Well, so here's a timely comment from Orlando. The ego needs to create distractions to prevent us recognizing that it's finished and nothing needs to be done. Well, what I'm hearing from you, the way I'm receiving it is everything is everything. Everything is what I've pulled to myself, including this table, this show, this everything. But it's how I look at it, and or how have I been looking at it? And what you're talking about, some like you said, like that heart of hearts. I wrote something a month ago, and I was like, the heart is the soul within the soul, right? I mean, like there's a core there. There's like like an infinite generator or a flex capacitor, whatever you want to call it, and that's that 13th element that you're talking about, and it's like seeing from there, hearing from there, feeling your way from there. Uh, where I'm like listening to you, and we've all talked about the ego for years and years and years. But this kind of gives me a different perspective listening to you because it's. I know this is going to sound a little bit bad, but it's like it's not that the ego is not a consideration, but uh, it's not the reference uh, source that it was.
No.
It was presented a lot like, let's say, our past history or certain programmings that are presented to us. I mean, obviously, if something's being withheld, then it's not the truth. So we've had this part of that energy or part of that program, whatever you want to call it, within ourselves. Also, as we look outside of ourselves, and so being in this 13th aspect space, which is really tying in everything you're talking about, the relationship with the morphic field, the level of attainability that you have as a result, the skills, the abilities, the higher sensitivities, is that ultimately, in layman's terms, you're seeing things for what they are, and I think that's again kind of tied into what you were talking about with this, what I called, with what you were saying, that this childlike wonder frequency, really, really band of frequencies, right? That
Yeah.
that's maybe it's the 12 duplicated,
Uh,
and maybe the 13th is the seed of the soul.
Well, the
That's
duplication
that's
of the 12 is it's either masculine or feminine. So there's the 24. So it's
mm,
either a one or a zero. right? And it
Mm,
all depends on what's happening in that present moment based upon infinite intelligence guiding you, see, because sometimes it needs to be on, sometimes it needs to be off, right? So that's where
mm.
the 24, it's fascinating, this, honest to
It
Christ,
may,
Todd.
it, you know, it makes you really, I mean, to me, it makes me, I'm very fond, and like you, I'm very fond of the human. I'm very proud of the human. I'm talking about all of us. I'm talking about our journey, our choice to come down here. But this takes it to another level. This is like, I mean, I don't know else how to put it, but I mean, it's like reinforcing what I've said, what other people have said, and that is to duplicate the non-physical and the physical, or integrate the non-physical with the physical. But the reality is, that I think is coming forth, is these things that we're coming into, such as, let's say, telekinesis or teleportation, or whatever, these are not new to us, and we know that. But I think what we're coming into is that these are not new to us in our previous Earth incarnations and civilizations. I mean, I saw a very, um, a very factually based, on numerous accounts of explorers, in the 1500s and 1600s and early 1700s of South America, particularly the Brazil region, where prior to the second and third and fourth waves of these explorers, uh, there had been I guess, smallpox or some type of disease that was brought into this environment where there was literally 15, 20 million people living in these extravagant cities that the Spaniards wrote about, cities of gold and so on, that 100 years later, explorer would go through there and they wouldn't, nobody was there. But because that's very well documented. But one of the things I didn't know is, I'd never seen before, that they had quality evidence that they were using electricity. They were charging their water. They were, so, like, I mean, I think that, this was kind of coming to me last night. I was thinking, wait a minute, I mean, each wave that we've had, they were in their own ascension, basically. You hear the story about the Mesopotamian, not Mesopotamian, the Mesoamerica, and I don't know if it was the Incas. It wasn't the Incas or anyone like that. It was a smaller tribe. I want to say like 4 to 5 thousand people. They had a village, maybe had a pyramid, and literally overnight, and I'm talking overnight, not like over a period of time, wiped out by disease. They literally all disappeared together, and it's one of the big mysteries from that part of the world. So, I mean, I think this. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think that these natural abilities are a lot closer to us than we ever thought, and that's by virtue of having physically experienced some of these things already, whether it be in Atlantis. And I'm not talking about technology. I'm talking about the technology that we are,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's honest to God. I mean, there's so many things coming in. I mean, I've learned about something called, this is something for our next talk, magnetohydrodynamics. Right.
Magneto. So
Yeah.
that has to do with water and magnetism.
Yeah, well, what it is it's, you can use and this is controversial, but you can use electromagnetic radiation to change the way hydrogen and water work in water vapor and liquids as well. That can actually impact upon the cell membranes and change the pH, because pH is just water, hydrogen, and hydroxyl. So there's all this, how electromagnetic radiation, I'm calling it invisible light and sound, can be used either as a weapon or as a healing mechanism. And that's like everything, Todd, isn't it? That there's a possibility from both of these, and depending on motivation, where you can, it's like Hong said before, you can either use a point to press on it to kill somebody or to heal somebody. And I think that that's where we are at the moment. Is there's sort of two sides. One wants to control and dominate, one wants to free. So
Yeah,
make your choice which side you want to be on, and try and develop to help others, or
yeah,
keep it up. Yeah, and I think that that's where we are now, because we started off, didn't we, that there's a spiritual reason for all this.
yeah,
And I think it's to sort of face yourself and decide whether you want to have everything or give it all away. As my dad used to say, go west, young man, and make something of yourself, or go east, young man, and make nothing of yourself, or stay in the middle and have it both ways. Right. And that's where I want to be, Todd. I want to be in the middle both
Yeah,
ways,
yeah, I
because what
agree.
I've realized is I am an androgynous being. There's a masculine and there's a feminine component to me,
Yeah,
and perfect peace is when those two sides, the yin and the yang, it's like that mystical union. Once they get back together again, they give each other a hug and they decide to work together for the third energy. Then that's when freedom comes.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. That's a great description, man. You're on point today.
Well, there you go.
I'm sorry you went through everything you did, there's a other part of me that says I'm not. I'm glad you did because
I'm
you've
not Todd. I'm just waiting till the next sort of, if you like, revelation comes through. And my big thing, and I'll let you go in a minute because I know you're on again soon. But most importantly is what do we need to do simply and practically to take the next step forward? Because we could spend hours, couldn't we, talking about all this stuff? But in the end, is, well, can you just show me what to do next? You
yeah,
know, and and,
yeah.
and that's the thing is how do I take this next step, and in what direction? And that's all I need to know, really, because then everything else will open up, and it just becomes self-evident.
Well, yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for. Well, I think um, this is great information. I think this is the real information. The type of information, like the people we had on last night. This couple had been together for years and just talking about their whole journey. And to me, the most impactful, and they've been together 22 years. Um, Two kids. I mean, aware, working on themselves all through the years. And we were just talking about, what's it been like going through this ascension? Has there been any masculine, just these basic. And the gentleman, Spencer, says, "Yeah, I just had it's been a journey, and I just had a major whatever just recently." And I said, "Well, how recently was it?" He says, "October 30." She said, "October 31st, 6:15 p.m." And I think the time part was a just kind of a exaggeration, but the point was it happened on that day. My point is that their information, uh, you would think 22 years of experience to offer, and certainly that's true, but their information from the 31st of October that was in their demeanor and their disposition, their auric field, what was being, you can see between the lines, was amazing. It was recent, and that's what the way I see this too, because I picked up a
Well,
lot today for myself.
well, I had my heart attack, that second one, on October the 31st.
See, you can't make this shit up, man. This
No,
is
no.
like crazy, man.
Halloween, Todd, Halloween, 4 a.m. in the morning.
Oh
And just
man,
finally, I just want to say about Gilda, nobody can show us the way. We've got to, when I say be show the way, I mean from within,
yeah.
not from outside, because I think we all have to find our own way, because that's about 100% personal responsibility.
Well, I think
Todd,
too, part of what you're saying too, it's that whole asking. I've caught myself or found myself in the last few weeks in that same space of, I guess you might say, surrender, like you're talking about. But asking, hey, look, I'm here to
yeah,
serve
yeah.
myself, my partner, myself, the collective equally. Um, it's a combination thing. It isn't one over the other. So can you help me here? Can you, and it comes through. I mean, I think it comes through if we ask. I really believe that.
Well, I tell you what else has happened. I've gained a few more light language voices as well. Seriously, no, honestly.
Really?
So different vibrations. So maybe next time we'll do a few of those.
Okay. All right. We're going to be coming back in 4 minutes, but I'm going to postpone that 10 minutes. So we'll be back in 14 minutes. So I
Todd,
can,
I love you, mate. Thanks very much for
hey,
having
man,
me.
I really appreciate it. Morgan's going to be reaching out to you so you and Catherine can come on with us.
She's already said no chance, but there you go. I'll persuade her.
Oh, well, let's have a conference call with her so she can see how charming I am.
Okay. Right, mate. God bless you. Thanks very